Hello, and welcome to Recent Ramble, the spin-off show that nobody asked for.
Or is listening to.
Quite right, dear brother. My name's Charlie McGee.
I'm George McGee.
For tonight only, we will be covering Avengers, Infinity War, a number of shows on TV, maybe some books, maybe some games. Who knows where this is going to go? George, anything to add before we dive into it?
It's going to be short. It's going to be snappy. We're going to be spoiler-free on Avengers Infinity War, so have no worries there.
We're going to tell you to start watching those programs on streaming services, which you're probably already watching, but we're still going to talk about them. You may be interested in our opinions, and even if you're not, we're going to share them with you anyway.
Thanos, you could destroy life on Earth. We're going to need some help.
On April 27th.
Together is our only hope.
Avengers.
Join us.
Once and for all.
Join Earth's mightiest heroes. Not today, sir.
Are you making your voice deeper?
No. You
He
are.
just did it again.
You're imitating the god.
This is my voice.
so cool.
Avengers Infinity War. Rated PG-13.
So, George, Avengers, Infinity War. This is part of a trilogy. How many films led up to this?
Well, it's the third Avengers film.
Sorry, it is the third Avengers film. Yes.
But yes, it's the 19th film in a series, which is so hard to fathom. In 10 years, they have almost caught up with James Bond.
That is insane. So yeah,
a film franchise that's been going for 50 years.
Yeah, so we're not going to spoil this film. We're obviously, a lot of people are talking about it. The film is doing remarkably well. Some would say not surprisingly, but it's doing very well. It's on course to doing $1 billion already.
It's done $1 billion, I think.
It's done $1 billion already. Wait a minute, it's done $2 billion. Oh, okay. Yeah, so we're just going to share our thoughts on it because it's the film of the moment. I've only seen the film once, George. George, I'm guessing, has seen it at least once, but judging by your response...
I've seen it once, twice.
Once, twice, you son of a bitch.
Yes, I went and saw it last week at a very plush Odeon in Swiss Cottage. Odeon Luxe, that's with an E. And it was IMAX, but they have electric recliner seats. I was very impressed. But yes, it was awesome because seeing it in IMAX, great, because great screen, great
knowing
sound.
What's coming.
Not Limax, not like those cinemas that call themselves IMAX, and it's IMAX format, but it's not really. It actually felt like a genuinely big screen. And I had these very comfy seats with extra legroom. So I will probably be going back there.
So for those of you in the know, and for those of you not, this is the third film. It's so many characters, so many bits. I mean, the cast list is redonkulous.
Well, all roads have been leading to this. So all 18 films have been leading up to this film. So you can understand why people are very excited.
Some people
too excited. It's been I don't know if you could say it's a gamble because Marvel, if anything, have displayed time and time again. It's an
amazing plan. That they've got a plan. That they've got a cycle.
I was going to say it's a reliable pair of hands, but there's obviously many hands at work.
Crazy how they've juggled so many different characters, different directorial styles. How they've managed to get different elements of comedy, stylistic options, but all moving in the same direction.
And yeah, if you think about it, in 18 films, there's been the odd misstep, but nothing that's an outright failure.
There's been Thor: The Dark World,
Doctor Strange, is a bit Iron Man 2.
Iron Man 2, kind of forgettables.
Yeah, but they're still
they carry the story
films.
along. There's some good bits in it. You get Sam Rockwell in Iron Man 2.
Should be in any film.
Just put him in because I think he does dance.
Get him dancing.
Get him dancing.
It's in as a contract. It's a bit like a Van Damme butt shot.
Yeah. You will do the splits. What to say about this film? Obviously, look online. There's a lot being said. We're obviously not going to spoil the film. All I would say is that it does a great job of utilizing the fact that it's been building up these characters over these 18 films. It goes straight into it. And this is not about the characters you know, it's about the character you don't know.
Yeah, it is very much Thanos' film. It is I think the villain does get the most screen time.
And he's great. We're not spoiling anything. He is great.
He is fantastic.
And they could have so easily fumbled. Like, it could have been, we've spent 18 you've done 18 films, and this is your 19th. Everyone could have been a bit meh. But the fact is, they raised the stakes, and they delivered, and they gave us, the one criticism you could throw Marvel's way is that they've had some third act villain issues.
Yeah.
And I think all of those have been forgotten because of how strong Thanos is.
Well, that's it. I mean, he's such a compelling villain, and this is someone, especially, it's extra hard work as it's a CGI creation. And I know it's like fishing with dynamite, and it's easy to take pot shots at the DC universe, but if you put those films side by side, they're both team-up films, they both have a otherworldly CGI villain, and those films are, excuse the pun, worlds apart. The fact is, yeah, it's an amazing performance by Josh Brolin. Amazing, but
great CGI. They put stubble on him.
Well, then that's what I was just about to say. That in terms of when we're talking about our review of the year about Planet of the Apes, that it's not just, whilst it is very much down to the performance, it's the guys behind the scenes doing the CGI work.
The mocap,
the animators doing that work, and you see past you don't see past the CGI effects that you take him for on face value.
Well, yeah, it was, what film was it recently? Oh, it was Ready Player One, when we were talking in our last recent ramble, we were saying you actually cared about these avatars, these digital projections of these people, that you believed that they were characters. And it's very much the case with Thanos, that he comes across, and you're interested to see the story. How is he gonna get all the stones? And you're interested in the journey he's going to go on. And it's quite funny in the fact that he's front and center. It's his story, it's his strategy, and it's almost like everybody else is reacting to him. You know? So they're the B-list.
I mean, it's funny. I did have worries. Like originally, I wasn't trying to get too excited about this film because I was thinking it's such an ambitious gamble. You've got so many characters. I think there's...
That's what we said. How is this going to work?
40 odd characters. How can you pay service? And I think, in all honesty, there are some characters that get short shrift, but I don't think it's really a spoiler to say that this is part one of two.
Well, everybody knows that there was going to be an Avengers 4. They announced it. I think they were shooting parts of it, but
they've done a Back to the Future. They've filmed it back to back.
Yeah, and that's to kind of keep the press guessing as well. But what I will say about this, and I'm sure this is similar for a lot of people, is that I was totally on board with Iron Man, and I was away traveling at the time. I was in Europe and then in South America when it came out, and it was the same year as The Dark Knight. And you were like, these are very good, compelling comic book stories. But Iron Man was cool. It was really good. That was the beginning, and I was on board, for a long time. But then fatigue set in, and to be honest, yes, as cinephiles, we've been going to see these films. We've been enjoying these films. Thoroughly enjoyed Thor Ragnarok and Black Panther, but there was a little bit of fatigue setting in, and it's all been washed away with how good this film is. Yeah, and the thing that I was so impressed with is, whilst these characters have limited screen time and dialogue, it's the impact, the emotional impact that they make with such limited time. So characters you aren't emotionally that invested in, like Vision and Scarlet Witch, they do have a compelling story. And shot in Edinburgh.
And shot in Edinburgh.
Great to see that.
Very interesting to see. There's a lot of dramatic heft in this film, but as with any Marvel film, and again, I think I was generally surprised that the amount of comedy in this, there is a lot of laugh out loud moments, and that's because I suppose you are juggling lots of different genres, but you have some very, very funny scenes. And it works well. But just getting back to your point about Back to the Future 2, are you insinuating that, like Back to the Future 3,
Thanos is going to be rocking up with some school teacher that he's saddled up with, and she's going to become part of the plot. Is that what you're saying is going to happen? And they're going to make this... Anyways.
Thanos turns up in a flying train locomotive.
With Jules and Verne named kids. Anyway, anything else you want to say before we move on to what we're consuming on our wonderful streaming devices?
Yeah, I say, I mean...
Surprised it was so successful.
Surprised at how well they managed to do it. I think... We were chatting about before, and we think it's 5 different stories.
We were talking about the ROTJ.
Yeah,
complex.
so in terms of the Return of the Jedi comparison, Return of the Jedi is a brilliant example of, in the third act, how you juggle 3 different narratives with the action unfolding at the same time, and you cut between them. This film does that with essentially
we reckon there's 5.
At least 5 different strands throughout the whole film,
and it works.
And to the most part, it works. I think
some bits don't.
There's a little bit of pacing in terms of timing.
When's this happening?
Yeah.
When's that happening? Don't worry about that.
How long have they been in an X place for? Yeah, I think the fact is that because you've had 10 years over the past 10 years of getting to know these characters, even if they have little screen time, you just go with it because they are so established, and that's it. It's one of those. The rest of the Marvel films have been pretty accessible to newbies, that you can kind of get away with some of them. With this one,
the shared universe thing didn't play as important a part.
Whereas this, you can't go into it cold. You have to see the majority of the Marvel films to get it.
But I'm using somebody else's words here, but it's kind of like a victory lap. But it's a victory lap both for Marvel, who've built this universe, but it's also for the audience, because we've invested the time.
Yeah.
We've watched these films. We've enjoyed most of them.
Yeah.
And we remember bits here and there, but there's going to be reviewings. There's going to be stuff you pick up the second time. So hats off to the Russo brothers, and please make more Arrested Development.
Yes.
Because if anybody's unaware of the fact, these guys did give us that glorious series. So, George, what are you streaming?
As you know, I am a man that lives in the past. I devoured all of Breaking Bad last year, so I'm a little bit behind when it comes to what's hot on streaming. But I have recently, not as far back as Breaking Bad, but I've just finished recently the first series of Narcos on Netflix.
The first series?
First, series 1.
What a series!
I thought it was fantastic. I've read quite a few books on Escobar in the past, because at one stage in my life
You wanted to be a drug dealer?
Doesn't everybody?
In Colombia, backed by the government.
I was planning to write a script based on the drug trade in South America. So I've read quite a bit on Pablo Escobar. So and I've seen it from different angles. I read a book actually written by Escobar's brother, which gives an interesting insight into that perspective. I thought it was a fantastic show. So if anyone has yet to see it, it's about the Narcos, the American DEA task force in Colombia, and the rise of Pablo Escobar, his rise to power, his discovery of the cocaine trade. Because I think they start off as just smuggling contraband, and then they are quickly introduced to cocaine and see the financial benefits of such a hell of a drug.
I mean, the only thing I'd point out is that it's about narcotics in South America. The focus is very much on Escobar for a while.
For this, yeah.
And everyone kind of knows it. Everyone knows it's one of those things like...
It's like the Titanic.
Yes, the Titanic. This is a beautiful love story. What could possibly go wrong with it? But
it really took an interesting turn.
But I think what we both agree on is the performances.
The
actors playing the DEA agents, both of them are stellar, and Escobar himself and his henchmen.
Yeah, so
there's a big body count. These people come and go, and everybody who replaces them is just as good as the last.
Yeah, so you've got Wagner Moura, who plays Pablo Escobar. He's actually Brazilian, but he plays a very convincing Colombian.
Todo es Nada.
He is brilliant. It's such a. I mean, obviously, it's a.
I could watch him read out the Spanish phone book.
Escobar is a very interesting character, but yeah, this.
I think he's more interesting than probably the real Escobar.
Yeah, and he's definitely he has that sort of very good mix of it. Well, like, you know, similar to what we were talking about with Thanos, but with any great villain, they have to you sort of love to hate them. They have to be. You almost want to root for them.
Pathos,
indeed. But yeah, you've got on the heroes side, you've Boyd Holbrook as the American DEA agent who was
popped up in Logan.
Yeah, he's really good. And you've also got Pedro Pascal, who has been in Game of Thrones, and he was in the recent Kingsman film, which we are both yet to see.
But I really like him. He's
fantastic.
He's gonna go places.
He should go places. He's very talented.
He's got presence.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think it's a fascinating story. Obviously, it's quite violent.
We like violence.
As you flagged up to me. It's got lots of TNA.
Serious TNA.
Yeah, it's not sort of American Gods level of not train friendly fare, but I really recommend it, and I am looking forward to seeing future series. But I'm taking a little break. I don't like to sort of do series back to back.
Well, I look forward to you catching up with the rest of the world. Keeping with the Latino theme, I have been watching Money Heist, or Casa del Papel, which is about...
Go on.
Basically, it's been made by Netflix Spain, so with full Spanish...
Netflix España.
And Netflix. Sorry, stereotype. But no, it's brilliant. It's consuming. It's very claustrophobic. It's the idea
What's it about?
Basically, bank robbers break into...
Rob banks?
No, so it's a heist about the Royal Mint of Spain. So it's actually a museum, but it's where they print all the euros in Spain. So they break in, but it's a well coordinated plan. Like everything's been planned through by El Profesor. And he's the guy who's on the outside, and the team is on the inside with hostages, and the police are on the outside. And he has second guessed every single thing that the police will do.
Professor Chimp.
It is Professor Chimp, but I mean, he looks, well, yeah, I don't want to say he looks like a chimp, but he does. We'll edit that out. But no, it's brilliant. It's obviously, it's all in Spanish. I would suggest you watch it with subtitles if you don't understand Spanish. It's always good to start there. But great performances, great tension, and it does a thing that I think Lost did, where I only watched the first two series before Lost got silly, but where there's the stuff that's going on now, but then there's a lot of flashbacks. And it's the flashbacks to the preparation. So when you get to a very important part of what's going to go down, and you're like, how are they going to get out of this? James Bond is going to die. No, but how are they going to get out of this potential problem that they're in?
Sticky situation.
And then it goes back and it shows that this is exactly what they kind of wanted.
El Professor knew it was coming.
There's a bit of cat and mouse though, because obviously things go awry and there's things he didn't plan for, and then there's stuff on the inside. But it's like a series, you know, of a heist, of a hostage situation. But the only thing that lets it down is the fact that, you know, it's one of those things that streaming suffers from, like with Mr. Robot and some other things, is that there's a season 2.
That's what I was just about to say. Is it self-contained? No.
Well, it can't be. It's like, because it's a series. It's like...
No, but I mean, I think something that's really...
It's a problem.
It's a real... everyone's saying it's a golden age of television, and, you know, we are spoilt for choice.
I think the golden age is passing, personally.
But, I definitely think that is an issue. That's one of the things that I found so refreshing about True Detective Series 1.
Yeah.
Is the fact that it's like a long film.
But that's what we look at Sherlock. Sherlock, the series, each, you know, they are connected, but they do them in threes, and they move on, and, you know, it could go many different ways. And it's just a shame. Like, I've stopped.
So how many episodes is it? Is it 10?
I think it's about 10 or 12. They're normally about that. I think it might even be 13. But Mr. Robot shot its load. Like, an amazing first season. And you wonder where's it going to go in season 2. And I watched season 2, and season 3 I've turned off because I'm like, they are spreading the butter really, really thin.
Treading water.
Yeah. And
Like Superman with kryptonite around his neck.
Miss Tess Marker. So yeah, but aside from that, no, it's great. Check it out. I'm sure you're probably already watching it. Casa de Papel, or Money Heist for us stupid Anglos.
I have never heard of it.
It's the one with the on the face on Netflix. They're in red boiler suits with the Salvador Dali masks on their face with a gun.
Okay. I'll have to check it out.
It's very good. So there's that. But
I'll check it out in 3 years' time.
George will catch up eventually. Before we move off Netflix, I think it's probably worth mentioning something I think that's come up before. But once you're bored of the TV, which can happen quickly if you've stayed in for a while, you've been off work, or you've just had a quiet weekend and you've watched loads of series, it is the best part of Netflix is the bit you never knew existed, the documentaries. Documentaries. They are amazing. I've watched some amazing. I think I might have even mentioned Dirty Money before, which delves into everything. Each episode is self-contained. There's one on Volkswagen, on the diesel.
Volkswagen.
The cheat tests that they did. There's payday loans. There's the maple syrup conspiracy, where maple syrup companies are trying to steal recipes from each other. There's one on the pharmaceutical scare, where that guy who bought all of the HIV drugs and then hiked the prices, and about how much of a cartel the pharmaceutical industry is. Then there's about how HSBC was actually supporting the cartels in Mexico. And there's the last episode is all about the best negotiator, the guy who is bigly famous, Donald Trump. So I highly recommend. That's called Dirty Money, and that is very good.
So you've been watching lots of shows with money
in the title
on Netflix.
What about you, George? You've watched
So I've been watching a very interesting documentary again on Netflix.
Related to our other podcast, Retro Ramble.
Related to our other podcast. A clarification: we are not sponsored by Netflix yet. Netflix, we are. Why won't you return our calls?
They keep calling us, but they're not offering us enough money.
So yeah, I'm watching a great series, a documentary series called The Toys That Made Us. So it's a sort of behind the scenes documentary catching up with some of the most influential toys of our youth. So
the birth of merchandising.
So currently there's 4 episodes on Netflix, and they cover Star Wars, Barbie, He-Man, and G.I. Joe. And it's just a really interesting, especially if you're a child, I
was a child.
If you were a child, if you were ever a child, but no, if you were a child of the 70s and 80s, there's a real sort of emotional significance of seeing all these figures and seeing the stories behind them, why they came to life. It's also really funny. It's almost like an Arrested Development style narration. It's sort of like they thought it was a good idea. It wasn't. And it's they do like recreations, there's animation, and there's some really genuine interesting facts. So about Star Wars, the fact that George Lucas started approaching toy companies very late in the day, like only about 6 months before the film came out, and they usually need a few years to prep. So, and because Star Wars, as we've talked about in other podcasts, was so much of a risk, no toy company really wanted to take it on. Movie tie-in toys never really took off.
Star Wars hadn't invented merchandising yet.
And so a very small, struggling toy company called Kenner took a gamble on them, but they also did a very lucrative deal for them in terms of the profit margin that Kenner took, and in terms of how much profit they paid to Lucasfilm, because they weren't in negotiating power. And they managed to have such a great deal, and they got a bit lazy. So in the late 80s, when obviously the films had lapsed out and the interest was
out of contract.
Yeah, the contract was still going, but they basically let the contract run. They let it lapse because it was between the prequels and sort of late 80s, early 90s. And sales were going down, so they're like, we're not going to honour the contract. So it put Lucasfilm in a position to renegotiate the contract, and they basically took them to the cleaners and said, no, this is what our profit margin is. Kenner managed to retain the contract. I think Kenner have now been bought out by Hasbro. But that's just one story. And there's some really interesting ones about He-Man, the fact that was an opposite side. So He-Man, they started off a bit like Transformers. They started off with the toys, and then they engineered a story afterwards.
It's not about the toys, it's about telling a story.
It's about telling story, and it's like, okay, how can we make this more compelling? Okay, let's include a comic with each character, and then that, how do we tell that story? And then they got the rights to the cartoon, and then if anything, the film adaptation kind of killed it, and it was at the end of its cycle. So yeah, really interesting, really funny. So there's currently 4 episodes available, but I think there's going to be another 4 episodes. The second part of the series is going to be released later this month, and I think it's including Transformers is in there, and I think there might be a few other ones. So yeah, check that out.
I need to check that out. And because we are not all Netflix, I have to talk about Bosch. Harry Bosch, based on the Michael Connolly books. Season 4 is out.
Babbling Bosch with Charlie McGee.
Just Babbling Bosch. Check out my other podcast. Just where me...
Boshing Bosch.
I'm just boshing Bosch. I'm not even recording it. It's just me in the bathroom just talking about Bosch to myself.
Bashing off to... No, that's something else.
The 4th season of Bosch is out. It's great. It combines a number of different threads from the books. Highly recommend it. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Is tight as well of a Harry Bosch still a maverick that plays by his own rules.
Maverick renegade who's gone rogue.
Days from retirement.
He's just gone rogue. They need him back for one last job. No, it's great. I watched it. It came out on April 13th, and I did it before the end of April. So, it's great. The thing is, Michael Connolly, I don't know if this is how we talked about this when we were talking about Ready Player One. Michael Connolly is still alive and kicking and still writing Bosch books, and he is part of the series now.
All right.
So they're working together on fitting it all together. So if you like a good detective story,
Maverick lone cops.
The one thing
listen to jazz.
The one thing that stands out about Bosch is that it's very much on the procedure of how policing is actually done today in LA. And it's not at all like what it looks like in Lethal Weapon. So there's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of...
At any point does anyone lie on the ground and fire their gun in their air and go R?
Unfortunately, no. So it's probably not for our audience.
Disappointing.
So yeah, that's basically all got really talk about streaming.
Charlie, what have you been playing recently?
I have.
Have you been playing with yourself?
I play with myself as soon as my wife goes to bed. I go into a dark room.
Fire up the projector. Take off your trousers.
And then play with my PlayStation. No, so at the moment I've been playing God of War, which is not a new title, but it has been kind of reimagined. This used to be a bashing the controller,
smashy button,
smashy, kill all the skeletons sort of thing. But it's an emotive. It's very much borrowing a lot from Last of Us. It's a great story with emotional heft. Great combat system. It's based like Norse mythology. It's just a great game. It looks amazing. It's fun. It's just a bit puzzles and stuff. So if you've had a few glasses of wine, it's not really a relaxing game because there's still a bit of
smashy.
But it's a great game to play. It's one of those. I'd say it's old school because a lot of gaming today is trying to push us into this MMO, massive multiplayer online, where we're all online playing together. And
like the Oasis.
Yeah, and it gets a bit boring, getting killed by teenagers for 2 hours or whatever. But this is an old school idea that you play the game and you go through the story, you go through the plot by yourself, you uncover things. It's a very well presented game. And to put this in perspective, it's a PlayStation exclusive. You need to have a PlayStation to play it. And their sales have jumped rapidly. And they've even had the CEO of Xbox come out and congratulate Sony on what an amazing job they've done. The guys who make Uncharted and Last of Us.
Naughty Dog.
They've come out and congratulated them. And Horizon Zero Dawn, who we talked about on our blog.
Is that the one with the robot dinosaurs?
That's the one with the robot dinosaurs and the hot ginger chick. But also was beautiful game. So everyone is like congratulating, which is weird because
Well played.
It is
Excuse
well
the pun.
played, but it shows the capacity that Sony has, that they've seen what's worked. God of War is a very old franchise. It was on PlayStation 1, it was on PlayStation 2, they did about 4 games.
PlayStation 1?
Maybe it was PlayStation 2.
PlayStation 2.
Probably PlayStation 2, but it's been out. I mean, we played this game. I played this game when I was just a long time ago, and they've said, hey, you know what? Let's borrow from Uncharted. Let's all these games that have congratulated them. Let's borrow that sort of style, that Tomb Raider third-person camera, but it is just such an impressive game. Like what you can do with the character, it just makes you want to play the game more because. It's fun, it's fun to play, it's interesting to play, and it's a good story. So highly recommend it for all you people out there who...
With the PlayStation.
With the PlayStation.
With a PlayStation controller.
Who like to play with themselves.
And a TV.
Yeah. Books, I'm reading Wild Cards.
Yes, I recommend that to you.
Yes, it's a good book. I like that.
By George R. Martin.
How many R's? I don't know. And... I think I'm probably due to start reading another Bosch book in the next
as soon
5
as Michael
minutes.
Connolly can write one.
No, I've still got a few. I've still got a few to read before I catch up. There's 18 books or 19 books.
I just see you turning, even though I haven't read the book or seen the film, turning into Kathy Bates from Misery and chasing down Michael Connolly. Write more books, Michael.
Michael,
when's the next Bosch book coming out?
I've written 22, Charlie. Calm the hell down.
Put me in one of your books.
So we are on the cusp of, obviously there's other films out there that we haven't seen. We both need to see A Quiet Place. There have been rave reviews about this. I would highly recommend going to see that.
Well, we are officially in long summer blockbuster season. So we have got coming out this Solo.
Yeah.
There is Jurassic World, there is Mission Impossible.
There's Deadpool.
Deadpool is coming out very soon. So
so there will be another Recent Ramble. We don't know when
there'll
it's
be
gonna
more.
happen.
As soon as people start listening in, we'll stop.
Okay. I think that sounded good. I think we should give it another go, and this time I'm going to record it.
What? These microphones aren't even plugged in, I don't think. It's just plugged into my sock.
So that's been Recent Ramble. I've been Charlie McGee.
I've been George McGee.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.